And Carmichael, and let me get the presentation started. You're going to notice that I have your audio and video. Hold on, I have to admit a few people. Your audio and video has been turned off. So if you don't mind leaving those off, that'll be great. And that will keep us from having too many distractions. Now, if anybody has trouble seeing the presentation or hearing it, will you just let me know by using the chat box down at the bottom of your Zoom screen? Okay. As I mentioned, and I'm sure your counselor has told you, we're going to talk tonight about the student financial aid process. I am a financial aid consultant. I've been in the business about 20 years, but I don't know everything. So if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. If I don't know the answers, I will certainly find out for you. As I'm sure Ms. Red has told you, the Louisiana Department of Education has asked that the class of 2021 submit the free application for federal student aid, or the FAFSA, and this is a graduation requirement. And the purpose of this is to ensure that your money is ready and waiting for you when you do begin college in the fall. Because the college financial aid process can be expensive, you need to be aware of and start preparing for the costs of pursuing a post-secondary education. And these include equipment, books and supplies like textbooks, notebooks, a computer if you need one, your personal expenses like your phone bill, gas for the car, or your laundry, things of that sort, any food outside of your meal plan. Room and board, which can include your dorm room, or if you're going to be living in an apartment, you'll need to pay your electricity, water, and gas, and buy your groceries and cleaning supplies. And if you live at home, you will have expenses that your parents probably are going to ask that you cover. And then tuition and fees such as parking, library, technology, and athletic fees, and also your campus transportation. And when you're looking at your cost of attendance on your college websites, a lot of times these fees aren't included. So be sure that you are asking your admissions representatives what these fees are as well. But the good news is that financial aid is available from a variety of sources. The US government, your state government, college or career schools, and nonprofit and private organizations. Every year, the federal government provides more than $120 billion in student financial aid, and a lot of that does go unawarded. So we just want to make sure that you have your share of it. Types of federal student aid include the federal Pell Grant, the federal Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant, the Teacher Educational Assistance for College and Higher Education Grant, the Iraq and Afghanistan Service Grant, Federal Work Study, and direct subsidized, unsubsidized, and plus loans. Federal student aid grants are a form of financial aid that doesn't have to be repaid. So you always want to accept all of the grant money that you're offered. Of course, the Pell Grants are for undergraduates with financial need. The FSEOGs are for undergraduates with exceptional financial need. So you could actually be offered a Pell Grant and an FSEOG. Then the service grants for students of military parents who died defending the country after 9/11, and teach grants for students pursuing a teaching career. The Federal Work Study Program provides part-time jobs to help pay for your education expenses. And this is a good way to buy down your student loan balances. So if you're able to work while you're in school, um, you will let the financial aid office know that you're interested in federal work study and they'll consider you for the program. Now, this is one of the FAFSA questions. You're asked if you're interested in work study. And if you say yes, which we encourage most students to do, um, it doesn't obligate you to work, but it does let the financial aid office know that you're interested and you'd like to be offered positions. Your money earned here is going to be paid directly to you, and you will use this money to pay for your college expenses. Direct subsidized loans are based on financial need, and no interest is charged on that type of loan until you graduate or cease to attend. Almost everyone's eligible for the direct unsubsidized loans, regardless of your financial need. But for these types of loans, interest does begin to accrue once it's fully dispersed and then throughout the life of the loan. So you see that there's a big difference between the direct subsidized and subsidized loans. You can remember which ones to accept first, the subsidized, because the U in unsubsidized means that you always pay the interest. And you want to avoid as much of that as possible. If you are offered loans and you need them, you want to accept the federal student loans first because payments aren't due until you graduate or cease to attend. The interest rate is fixed at a lower rate and no credit charge is required on the federal student loan. But the private student loans, you have to be a little bit more careful about. Most require payments be made while you're still in school. The interest rate might be a lot higher and it's often variable, so it's going to change from year to year. And they almost always require a cosigner. So make sure you're doing your research before you're selecting your private loan lender, as your interest rates and incentives to borrow are going to vary. So to dispel the myth, almost everyone is eligible for some type of federal student aid. And all federal student aid and most institutional and private aid is contingent upon completion of the free application for federal student aid, or the FAFSA, which of course launched on October 1st and does so every academic year. Now you want to remember that every year you're in college, you have to complete another FAFSA for the upcoming year. Student financial aid is awarded on a first come, first served basis, so you want to get your FAFSA submitted as soon as possible. And remember to pay close attention to your deadlines. Um, Colleges will have a FAFSA deadline. The state will have a FAFSA deadline. So your TOPS scholarship is contingent upon completion of the FAFSA, and they'll let you know when that is due as well. And then there are federal student aid deadlines as well. Your counselor may have a deadline for you to submit your FAFSA and provide her with the proof that you did so. Before you begin the FAFSA process, you'll want to gather all the documents you needed to complete the form, and this just makes it go a lot smoother. Each student and their parents are going to need their Social Security cards, the 2019 federal income tax returns for the student and the parents if they filed them, the W-2s, because there's information on this form that might not be on your tax return. So it's always good to gather this just in case you need it. And bank statements and records of your investments, because you're going to be asked to provide the balances of your accounts as of the date that you submit the FAFSA. You begin by creating the Federal Student Aid ID. This allows the student and the parents to identify themselves electronically when submitting the FAFSA. And then you'll use it again. If you have student loans, you'll use it to check the balances of your loans. But you'll need this every year that you are completing a FAFSA. It's going to consist of a unique username and password that you're going to create and should contain only your personal information. So each student and one of the student's parents is going to have to create this ID. Here's the website. It's fsaid.ed.gov. And as I mentioned, only your email address and your phone number should be listed in your ID. A lot of times a student will use a parent's mobile phone number as their alternate number, or a parent might use an email address that's in use by the student if they don't already have one. This is a good time to create your own personal email address because you're going to need it and you have to have it for your FSA ID. So make sure you have that done before you start your ID. The username and password is your official electronic signature. So you want to make sure you're recording it and keeping it in a very safe place. And don't share it with anybody. It's very important. It's your legal signature. Now, if you don't have access to a computer when you started your FAFSA, you can always download the FAFSA mobile app. It's called My Student Aid, and you can use it to submit your FAFSA on your mobile device or your iPad or any other device you have that has internet access. Or you can complete the FAFSA using the web-based version at fafsa.gov. Now, if the student prefers to use the mobile device, they can work on their mobile device, and parents, you can work on the web-based format as well. And the information is going to be combined into one FAFSA. So begin the FAFSA process by logging in with the student's FSA ID, because the FAFSA is the student's application for federal student aid. Mom or dad, you're going to use your FSA ID if you want to transfer your tax information from the IRS into your FAFSA, and then you'll use it again to sign the student's FAFSA. The high school class of 2021 should complete the 2021-2022 FAFSA because that's the academic year for which you're applying for financial aid. And I know it can be confusing, but if you were to complete the 2020-2021 FAFSA right now, the colleges are going to assume you're going to be on their campuses this academic year. So let that be a reminder which FAFSA you need to complete. There are 8 sections that need to be completed before submitting your FAFSA. You have the student demographic section where you'll be asked to provide your social security number, your name, your date of birth, your email address, and let's make sure you're using your personal email addresses, not your school email address, because you're going to lose access to that once you graduate. And then federal student aid won't have any way to get in touch with you about your financial aid. You'll need to provide your physical address. They'll be asking about your residency status and your gender. Then the school selection section, you'll report your high school, the colleges that you'd like your FAFSA data to be sent to, and your housing plans on each of those campuses. Your dependency status, which is a list of 10 questions that will determine your dependency. And we're going to talk about those questions in a few minutes. The number of dependents that are living in your household and your parents' education to determine if you're a first generation student. And if you are a first generation college student, there may be some additional financial assistance that's offered to you. In the parent demographic section, your parents are going to be asked to provide their social security numbers, their names, their marital status, whether they're divorced, separated, or married at this point, and their personal email address. The parent financials are going to be asking for your working wages from 2019, federal benefits received, and any savings and investments that you might have. The student financial section is going to ask the very same question. So sometimes it's confusing. You think, oh, geez, why are they asking me this again? But remember, the parent financials will be asked for first and the student financials next. If the student didn't work in 2019, that's fine. You'll just state that and then you'll just enter zeros when they ask how much you've earned during the 2019 tax year. Then it's time to sign and submit, and this is where you're going to use your FSA IDs. And the last step will be to review your confirmation page. So as you're moving through the FAFSA, if you have a question about a question, look at the question mark. It's over to the right-hand side of every question, and it will give an in-depth description of exactly what they want. There are hyperlinks provided in the form. You can click on those for more clarification. You can request a FAFSA online chat while you're in the form, or you can call Federal Student Aid, or you can call me at Leela's FAFSA helpline. I'll be happy to help you as well. But for this session, I'm just going to cover the most commonly asked FAFSA questions. If you have one that I don't cover tonight, please drop that question in the chat box below and I'll answer it at the end of the presentation. Or if you want to speak to me individually, you can always drop me an email or call the FAFSA helpline. I'll provide my contact information at the end of the session. The citizenship requirement. The student must be an eligible citizen, must be a citizen or an eligible non-citizen to complete a FAFSA, but his parents do not have to be citizens or eligible non-citizens. And if that's the case, the parents will enter zeros any place that a social security number is asked for. Only the colleges that you list on your FAFSA in the school selection section are going to consider you for student financial aid. So this, you're not giving your financial information and contact information to just everybody in the country. You have to give federal student aid permission to send your FAFSA data to your schools. You can add up to 10 schools each time you submit a FAFSA. So if you are going to be applying to more than 10 colleges, there are specific instructions on this page as to how to complete that process. To determine a student's dependency status, they're going to be asked to consider these 10 questions. And we'll go over them briefly. Will you be 24 or older by January 1st of the school year for which you're applying for financial aid? Are you married or separated but not divorced? And remember, these are questions for the student. Will you be working on a graduate degree? Do you have children who receive more than half of their support from you? Do you have dependents or other children other than your children or a spouse who live with you and receive more than half of their support from you? Are you currently serving on active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces for purposes other than training? So this is going to exclude boot camp and basic training. Are you a veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces? At any time since you turned 13, were both of your parents deceased? Were you in foster care or were you a ward or dependent of the court? Are you an emancipated minor? And this is one of those hyperlinks. If you're not sure what an emancipated minor is, click on that hyperlink to get a description of that term. Or are you in legal guardianship as determined by a court? Now remember that legal custody is not always considered legal guardianship. So if you are in this situation, just take a look at your documentation to make sure what your situation is before you answer this question. Are you an unaccompanied youth who is homeless? Or are you self supporting and at risk of being homeless? So if your school district has identified you, you need to ask for a copy of that report and keep it with you because the financial aid office is going to ask you for it. If you can answer yes to just one of these questions and you provide a legal document supporting that claim, you're considered an independent student for FAFSA purposes. So for FAFSA purposes, you're not considered an independent student simply because you file your own taxes or you live alone and you support yourself. You do have to be able to answer yes to one of the previous 10 questions. So this is the big one. Who is my parent when I fill out the FAFSA? Who do I report as my parents on the FAFSA? And the parent or parents that you lived with the longest in the past 12 months should be listed on your FAFSA. So that's easy if you live with both of your biological parents, you're just going to list both of them. But if the parent you lived with the longest the past 12 months is separated, divorced, or was never married, you should list that parent on the FAFSA. Now, if that parent is remarried, you must now include his or her spouse. In other words, federal student aid wants to know the financial standing of the household that the student has lived with the longest in the 12 months prior to the date that the FAFSA is submitted. If you're identified as a dependent student, but your parents do not want to provide their information on your FAFSA, you can answer, I'm unable to provide information about my parents, and then state that you don't have a special circumstance, and go ahead and submit your FAFSA without parental information. But if you don't contact the financial aid office to discuss your situation, they're only going to consider you for student loans. They're not contacting everybody to make sure, if you completed the parent section on purpose or if you just omitted it, you are responsible for contacting them to discuss your situation and the fact that your parents do not want to provide their information. That's going to kind of put you in an appeal process and you'll have to provide additional information to them because federal student aid is not the one who's awarding your student financial aid. It's every college campus that you're applying to. Now, when you get to the financial section, you're going to find that it's a lot easier and your financial aid is going to be processed a lot quicker if the parents and the student use the IRS data retrieval tool to move your information from the IRS directly into the FAFSA. That way, the financial aid office does not have to verify everything because they're not going to take it at your word that you manually entered your information correctly. They're going to ask you for a copy of a tax transcript. You're going to have to go to the IRS site and request that information. So it's a lot simpler to use the Internal Revenue Data Retrieval tool. If you're having a problem using the tool, contact Federal Student Aid or call me at the FAFSA helpline, and I'm happy to help you. There are some things that we found out in the past that can hold you up on using the tool. So once you're in the IRS site, as you can see here, you're going to use your manual printed out 2019 federal tax return to fill in any blanks you see. The IRS wants to know exactly what was entered on your tax return when you filed it in 2019. Now, even if your tax return has information that's incorrect, we've had parents who their tax preparer misspelled their name or put the wrong um, road or street or avenue. You want to duplicate what's on that printed return that's in front of you, and you want to put it here on the IRS site because that's what they're looking for. And then you're almost finished with your FAFSA. You want to make sure that you are reviewing your student aid report. This is what this section is going to look like, and it's just a listing of every question you were asked on the FAFSA and what you answered to that question. So, to ensure that the financial aid office is receiving accurate information, um, go ahead and review this before you move on to the sign and submit page. Once the student himself and one parent should sign the FAFSA. This is where you're going to use your FSA IDs. If you do submit your FAFSA without signatures, it's going to be considered incomplete. So you want to make sure that you're completing this step. Federal Student Aid will remind you via email that you have not completed your FAFSA. That will be another reminder. You'll have to log back into your FAFSA, correct your FAFSA or sign it, and then resubmit it. And then you'll receive your FAFSA confirmation page as soon as you press submit. Now on this page, you're going to find out the steps you need to take next to complete the process. You'll see a list of the colleges that are going to receive your FAFSA data. You can review your expected estimated family contribution and consider your financial aid estimates. And remember that these are just estimates based on your FAFSA answers. Every college financial aid office is going to verify the information that you've submitted, and they will be the ones to determine your actual award on their campus. Once you have submitted your FAFSA and it's fully processed, then it's shared with your colleges. Each college financial aid office is then going to review your FAFSA information, and they'll begin to look for any aid that they can offer you to attend their college. If your family's financial situation has changed since 2019, and this is going to be a bumper year for that with everything that's going on with the pandemic, you can contact your college financial aid offices because they have the ability to adjust your aid offer by using what they call professional judgment. Now, this could include your situation change in the form of income loss or a layoff or just a reduction in your hours worked or a death in your family. So don't be shy about contacting your financial aid office to discuss your situation. Once you do receive your financial aid offers, you're going to want to accept them in this order. Scholarships and grants. This is free money that does not have to be repaid. Then federal work study, which is money that you've earned, so you don't have to worry about that. And then student loans. This is what your financial aid award letter is going to contain. It's going to show their cost of attendance on their campus. It's going to show any grants and scholarships or work study and student loans that you've been offered. So you'll want to make sure that you are reviewing this award letter from each college and that you understand exactly what you're being offered. The student financial aid process is explained in detail in our FAFSA completion guide and workbook for the class of 2021, and it's free for all Louisiana high school seniors. So if you haven't already received a copy of our guide, you can just send me an email at carmichael@lila.org, and I'm going to provide that email address for you a little bit later. And you'll want to use our senior checklist for college planning to stay on track this year. And I'll include that with your guide. Now, most importantly, are scholarships. These are gifts that don't have to be repaid, and there are thousands of them. They're offered by schools and employers, community organizations, and social organizations. Some are merit based, awarded on your academic achievement or talent you might have, and others are based on financial need. A scholarship could cover the entire cost of your tuition, or it could be a one time award of just a few $100s. But either way, it's worth applying for because it's going to reduce the cost of your education. So, talk to your counselor and your college financial aid office for tips on where to find scholarships. This year, Leela offers two scholarship opportunities. We have a $1,000 FAFSA completion scholarship for seniors attending a Louisiana high school and a $1,000 Choose Louisiana scholarship for students attending a Louisiana college. And you can find out more about the requirements and the application to apply at leela.org. And for students or parents who need help paying for college after you accept all of your scholarships, grants, state and federal money, Leela has a nonprofit education loan. And you can find out more about that at leelachoice.org. I'm always available to answer your questions. So if you have any at this point, I know this is a lot of information to absorb. You can drop your questions in the chat box, or you can talk to me on Leela's FAFSA helpline. I'll leave this up for a minute or so that you can jot this down. You can call me if you have questions about the FAFSA process. You can call me while you're in the FAFSA. If you're having an issue, I'm available to speak with you. And if I don't pick up right away, you can always leave a message for me and I'll call you back. This is my email address. So if you want to request a copy of that FAFSA completion guide, I'll send it on to you. A copy of this presentation and other financial aid tips is going to be posted after tonight's session on our YouTube channel, and you can follow us at Ask Leela, and that way you can review the presentation as well. Or for those who missed it, misread, they can watch it there as well. So I want you to remember to complete your FAFSA, ask for help if you need it, and then apply for our $1,000 FAFSA completion scholarship. And I see a message, so hold on just a minute. Oh, good. Ms. Red says that Ms. Nadia, your career counselor, will be meeting with students every Tuesday to help them with everything having to do with the FAFSA and your college application. All right, if nobody has any questions, I want to thank you for having me this evening, and please feel free to contact me at any time. And thanks, Ms. Red, I appreciate your support. Bye-bye.